So this section is how to place a MIO set. So the three things you will need is you'll have already got your vial of insulin, which you will have prepared using the previous video. You'll need that. You will need a MIO, whether it's blue or pink or clear, and you also need your pump. So the first step with the MIO is you'll see there's a red tape that just requires peeling down, and there's a clear plastic that goes around the MIO that just needs taking off. And you'll see on the bottom there's covered with a white tape, and there's actually a tab there that requires pulling down and then peeling off. The next part is to take the lid off, so you can see that there's a lip there that will just allow you to get your thumb and pop that under. As you'll see, there is a P cap here, and that's actually around the winder, and you'll be able to see it's caught on the lip there. So the first thing is to take the tubing underneath the lip. So if you can see this, just pops under, and it's important when you unwind it that you unwind it slowly so you don't take the cannula housing off its perch. So it's taken off nice and slowly, and you can see there it comes out. And at this point it's important not to put it onto any of the grooves. So you don't want to put it onto any of the grooves, just leave it dangling for this moment in time. Once you get to this stage, you'll then pop that down, and then this is where you attach the vial onto the P cap. And this is just done on a sort of almost like a three-step stage. So you'll just put it against it with an initial bit of pressure, and then you just need a quarter turn and it'll slip in place, and then you need a final quarter turn once you hear it click, and that's then nice and in place. So that will be your second stage. Then what you need to do is rewind the pump. So we can pop this down for 1 second, and you go into the pump menu screen. So it's always important to turn the light on first, and then you press the ACT button, and then come down to reservoir and set. Then into reservoir and set, and then to reservoir setup, and then it will ask, spare me 1 second, it'll say to disconnect the tubing from the body and take out the reservoir that's in there. Obviously this doesn't have one in, but for yourself this will be the cue to take off the old infusion set and take out the reservoir, and then you press ACT to rewind, and at this point the piston is then rewinding back ready for the next cartridge. It might take a few seconds depending on how far the piston is up there. So then it says rewind complete, lock and place the reservoir in place. So this is where the reservoir will just go in. Will go in there, and you can just, it will turn, and then you'll hear it click once it's in place. So you'll feel it click, physically click. So once in place, it then says to press ACT, and it asks if you're disconnected from your body. So if you have disconnected, which you should have done, it'll be down for yes. And then this is the part where it asks you to hold the ACT button until you see drops at the end of the cannula. So you're going to keep pressing the ACT button until you see drops coming out the end of the tubing. So that's what I'm going to do now, is keep my finger on the ACT button until we see the drops. At this point the piston is just moving up to meet the cartridge. And you can see drops coming out of the end. It's always worthwhile to let a couple of drops out just to make sure any potential air bubbles have gone. So you're quite confident that the insulin is now coming out. So you'll see on the screen it now says, once that's done, press escape if done. And then it will ask, can you see drops at the end of the tubing, which you can. So it's down to yes. And then it says to attach the MIO to the body. So at this point you can pop the pump back down and then get the MIO ready. So this is the final stage. You can see around the needle there is a guard. So what is required to do is just gently to just twist that, and it comes off nice and easily. Then you'll see there's a tab here, and that lifts and spirals off. So nice and gently it just spirals off. Okay. So the next part is to load it ready for the insertion, and you'll be able to see on the MIO that opposite each other there's dimple sides, and then there's also kind of rough sides, serrated sides. So what is the ideal to do is to get your two fingers on the serrated side there, not on the dimples. You want to keep it on the rough parts, and you'll see there's a back part to just pull all the way back. And it's important at this stage that you might think, oh, I'm pulling it back, but it's not staying. You do need to pull it back with some force until you hear it click like this. So you've heard that click into place, and then it is ready to put in position. So this would be the next part of actually doing the insertion. So what you're going to do is put it onto the area you want the insertion, usually the abdomen area, the top of the buttocks, possibly maybe the side of the legs. In my case we're going to use the abdomen. So you keep hold of the rough sides, make sure you keep hold of the rough sides until you pop it into place, to make sure that you don't let it fire when it's not in place. So we keep hold of the rough sides. I'm just going to move and get it into position. So you can see I'm now going to place it onto my abdomen, and at this point you can actually pop the tubing into the groove at this point, not before. And it's important just to check, if you have a look onto the needle, that the needle part, the metal part, is actually above where the little plastic cannula is. So you might not be able to see that there, but you can certainly see that. I can see that the metal part is above where the plastic is. So once that's all in position, you place it onto the abdomen area. And then at this point, switch your hand to the two dimple parts and just gently squeeze them together, and that's when it releases it. When it's in place, just gently press down on the white part in the center, and then you count to 5 seconds, and then just lift off at 90 degrees. And then this is the part that goes into the sharp spin. Then the final part is, now that you've taken the metal needle out, there is a plastic cannula inside that has no insulin, that requires filling. So that is the part where it says act to fill. So press act, and for the MIO, if it is a 6mm, you need to put 0.3 units in. If it was a 9mm, you would need 0.5 units. And because mine is a 6mm, it's 0.3. So go to 0.3, press act, and that would just ensure that the cannula is now filled, and then the basal rate, once it starts to be delivered, would actually be getting inside you. And that's the MIO complete.